Hey everyone, my name is Tom Nobbs. I'm a running coach here at Team RunRun. We're a coaching platform and running community. We have over 200 coaches, at least over 7,500 runners, and we're steadily growing. I'm a 2:12 marathoner. I've run 63 minutes in the half marathon myself. And yeah, today I just want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that can help you improve as a runner. We want to bring you more guides, more education, whether you're a first time runner or you're progressing to being an elite. And I think there's a big gap in terms of education a lot of the time. So we want to bring you the stuff that matters in terms of science. I want to share my perspectives, what I see as a pro runner, what I do, the things I've learned across my 20 years of racing, 10 plus years of coaching. And so, yeah, today is just all about the topic of fueling. In particular, if this is your first marathon build, how do you fuel? What are the different things that you should be considering at different stages of your build? And yeah, how we really prep for race day of a marathon within the training block. So we're going to save some of the stuff that we have later on for, talking about what we're doing on race day, what we're doing in the carb load. But for today, we're just going to talk about fueling to start with. All right, as I mentioned in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about how to fuel during a marathon build, what we're looking for. We can't just show up on the marathon race day with a pocket full of gels and just hope for the best. So realistically, our gut is a system. We need to work on that system, and it can be trained just like a muscle. So we'll talk through a lot of different things on how we get there and what's really important to be considering. So starting simply, when we go out for a run, our body needs energy. Seems pretty simple, seems obvious, but I think for a lot of people, it's a lot less obvious where that energy comes from, how fast it runs out, and sort of planning ahead in terms of the fuel sources and the fuel types that we need going into easy runs, going into workouts. So we have carbs and we have fats. Those are kind of our two primary sources. Carbs get stored in our muscles and liver as something called glycogen. You can really think of glycogen as your high octane fuel. So it's your preferred fuel source for most activity, and it converts really well, really efficiently and quickly when we need it most. Then on the other hand, we have fats. We kind of have an unlimited supply, but fats are more like a source from a backup generator. So it burns a lot slower, requires a lot more oxygen to convert into the same amount of usable energy. Takes about 8% more oxygen per unit of ATP, which is the energy currency that your muscles use to contract, to snap, to fire. So fat is great fuel. It does cost you a little bit more. And when you push the accelerator, the gas just comes out a little bit slower. It's kind of a slower burn. So on an easy run, that might not matter as much. So oxygen delivery is adequate. Your body is comfortably blending fat and carbs. Everything feels fine. We're getting some endorphins. Life is good. So you could run a really long time at that effort, with an easy effort, and your body will do quite well. But most runners, as we enter into a build, say you're a new runner, we're going to be training at multiple different intensities. So we want to think of time and intensity. As we increase intensity, and the moment we start pushing into marathon pace, tempo pace, your heart rate goes up, effort goes up. The body is really shifting its preferred source, which is carbohydrates, as again, they're more efficient at that level of work. And your body needs more carbs the harder and longer the workout is. I cannot repeat that enough. So just think about, if time is longer and intensity is bigger, we need more and we need simpler carbs. Your body really can only store glycogen for roughly 90 to 120 minutes of sustained hard efforts. That's ultimately the size of most people's fuel tank. It doesn't really matter, if you're big or smaller or anything like that. We can really think of it like a road trip. So if we're comparing your regular commute to work, it might be like 30 minutes. You don't really think about, I need to fuel up gas this morning. But ultimately, if you're going for, say, an 8-hour drive on a road trip, it's a little bit more important for you to go fill up your tank of gas before leaving and so you don't have to stop along the way. A marathon and a lot of long runs and big workouts, that's kind of the same thing as that road trip, where we're not really going to get through it with a single tank of gas. And so we need to be fueling during, but we also need to have appropriate amount of fuel beforehand. So eating a lot of simple carbs and the appropriate kind of carbs going into each workout. So I'd say as like an example, most tempo sessions or most workouts, I'm getting up early in the morning. I might be having something like an English muffin with honey on it, or ideally we're getting about 70 grams of carbs before major workouts. So that might be your average bagel with a bit of honey on it. That would get you definitely over that amount of carbs for coming into a workout. And then, something for an easy run, I might be thinking about, am I getting a single piece of toast? Am I getting a single piece of toast with jam? Some people might say, okay, one banana is sufficient for a 50 to 60 minute run. So it does vary person to person, how experienced you are. But those are just some general examples for what we might look coming into different activities and certain things that I look for as well. We could map out exactly how many carbs or grams of carbs that is, or how many calories we're getting from carbs. But I think for now, like those are some good examples we can think about to sustain most of those efforts. As one sports dietitian told me, you're essentially topping off the tank, so you don't start the session already drawing from your reserves. You also don't want to start the first rep of your workout having warmed up and having drawn from those reserves, so that when you're hitting the first rep, you're already on a steady decline in terms of how much carbs and how much glycogen you have readily available for those harder and more intense reps and intervals. So another key thing with what you eat, especially before sessions, before workouts, before long runs, and even the night before, is we want to keep it relatively low fiber. So low fiber and low fat, closer and closer to runs. Fiber really slows down digestion, so it's great for overall health, but kind of terrible the night before run, and especially right before we head out the door. So these things are going to sit in your stomach a lot longer. If foods are high in fiber, you'll feel heavy. You have a bit more of an increased risk of GI issues. And in terms of other ingredients too, like fat kind of does the same thing. So it sits in your stomach, and it sort of slows down the absorption of the other foods and ingredients that you're trying to process. Bagels, white rice, sourdough bread, those are low in fiber, very easy to digest. You can pair those with whatever sort of topping, flavoring, or other thing you want that gives you a little bit more of a boost of quick energy. Now, if you have a bit more time, you can combine some more complex carbs into the mix. So something that I really like to have is oatmeal. It breaks down a bit slower. We can add some fruit in there or honey. And it's a simple carb that hits fast, but pairing those together kind of gives you both quick energy and some sustained fuel as well. So what doesn't work before run might be high fiber cereal and a handful of seeds or vegetables. Great breakfast on a rest day or post session, but probably a terrible breakfast right before a tempo run. So that's one key mistake that I often see. And something that I used to do for years, and I just get acid reflux or some pain in my stomach or pain in my chest just as a result of that. And honestly, just trying to keep it simple is a better option as a whole. The other mistake that I tend to see is people that are constantly running fasted. So if you're doing a morning workout or long run on an empty stomach, and you're starting every single session in a deficit, you're essentially using stored glycogen from the very first step instead of topping off your glycogen stores first. So again, for an easy jog, that might be fine. For a hard or long session, you don't want to sabotage that session when every week matters and you don't want to sabotage your overall recovery. All right, so the final session I want to chat about is fueling during runs, what kind of gels, drinks you can take, and also gut training as a really big thing that we've been talking about. So this is pretty individualized. This is where a lot of runners are either doing too much or too little or overcomplicating things. But if your run is essentially under an hour and it's easy, you probably don't need to change much. Water is totally fine. Your glycogen stores really have you covered. Once you get past that 60 to 90 minute mark, and especially for anything hard, you need to start taking in carbs while you run. The science of what's changed is that 10 or 15 years ago, the advice was very conservative. It was trying to do the longest, hardest sessions with as little as possible. One gel every 45 minutes, maybe 60 grams of carbs per hour. People really thought that was the ceiling that your gut could process. Was about 60 grams of glucose per hour. So that's technically true when we're strictly consuming glucose, but what sort of changed the game in understanding that your intestines have more than one doorway. They have more than one way of absorbing sugar. You can kind of think of it like a grocery store with only one checkout lane. No matter how many people are in the store, everybody funnels through that single lane to get out of the store. That's kind of glucose only as one transporter that's sort of maxed out at 60 grams of carbs per hour. Now, when we open up a second checkout lane, suddenly the same store can move a lot more people through it. And so that's really what happens when you add fructose to the mix, glucose using one transporter, fructose using a completely different transporter lane. So with those two lanes working at the same time, we can get this ideal ratio of glucose and fructose, which is the 1 to 0.8 ratio. And our absorption rate really jumps to 90 grams of carbs per hour. And if you're a well-trained individual, you can take in even 100 grams of carbs per hour. I personally take in 100 grams of carbs per hour. I use high carb mixes mixed into bottles. And so during races, I'll be taking about 7 to 8 bottles with about 150 to 160 mils of water mixed with 30-ish grams of high carb mix. So I actually have a couple different ones that I typically use. Blank Sports Nutrition, the high carb mix is what I've been using, blue raspberry flavor, not sick of it yet. And the other one here, Scratch Super High Carb Mix. So two things that I typically take in myself personally. And so those are sort of optimized to have the right ratio so you can absorb as much as possible during a lot of your sessions. But yeah, most products are really engineered for this. And so again, we're optimizing for what do you like the taste of, what is comfortable and sitting well in your stomach. And a lot of these are convenient. You can take them on the go. And they're built-in formulations around this dual transporter science. A lot of what we think is the ceiling is sort of being pressed by a lot of people. I think people have probably heard about Joe Klecker trying to take in 170 grams of carbs per hour. He ran 210. I think this is a bit of an extreme outlier, really not the target for us. But the point kind of stands is that the human gut is very flexible. It can handle more than we assumed. And so within training, the gut is trainable. There is a lot of landmark studies and research that shows, just 2 weeks of consistent gut training, where consuming 90 grams of carbs per hour during training runs can lead to a 60% reduction in GI symptoms and a 5% improvement in running performance. So taking the same athletes, just training their gut for 2 weeks, and practically for you, this would mean just trying this early on in your build. So week 1 to 8 of your build, try to begin maybe conservatively if this is very new to you, maybe aiming for 2 gels within the hour, and then gradually working with your coach to sort of progress that amount. You might want to try taking some very simple carbs, like a shot of honey right before you head out the door. So technically that's a higher density of carbs that you're taking right before you head out the door. But technically your body is trying to process that, plus the gels that you're taking during your run or the carbs you're taking during your run. And then from there, it's just a matter of like every couple of weeks trying to bump it up by 10 to 15 grams and just seeing how you adapt to different sessions when it's an easy long run versus a long run with marathon pace work built into it. By the middle of the build, you might be practicing at or near race pace as your target. And so for most runners, ideally you're getting over 80 grams of carbs per hour with the exact products that you're going to be taking. This is sort of a non-negotiable. We don't want to change anything up on race day. And so again, everything that we can do in training, we want that to simulate what we're going to do actually on the day. And this even comes down to like how you're opening up gels. So during your long runs, I would practice, ripping the gel and then, trying to sip it for, 800 meters or even a kilometer. So really trying to get that in your palate, get that swishing around your salivary glands. Mainly that's just going to wake up your brain a little bit more, but also just taking time to process those carbs. And again, when you have one gel taken out of your pocket or sleeve or a running belt, you can run with this thing for a long time. It's like super lightweight. And this is a very big gel that I have right here. So lots of things that we can practice when we're prepping for a race. And again, we want to start fueling pretty early on in most sessions. Those time intervals are pretty custom to you. So you could be taking in a higher carb gel that has 40 grams of carbs. You could be taking 2 of those in every 30 minutes. You could be taking in a gel every 20 minutes. And so we just want to make sure that the carbs are reaching your muscles. All right, so just to cap off this sort of section here, I do think that it's important to call out that a lot of us think we're above fueling, that we can go past a lot of these practices. I do want to say that at one point in time, I was someone who tried to skip out on breakfast, try to do some glycogen fasted runs, experiment with some of that stuff. And, I might have taken no gels on a long run. And so I think over time, as I shifted from the 5K to the 10K, and then 10K to half marathon, marathon. I've sort of gotten a lot more in tune with a lot of these practices. And I can definitely say that I felt a lot better when I've done some sort of progressive overload of taking carbs pre-session, pre-long run, and then also consistently fueling during and post-long run as well. So this might look like, instead of just occasionally remembering to take some gels, instead of making it a priority. And that's really been a big change in terms of performance and knocking down times from 2:19 to 2:15, now 2:12. I think kind of what I want to then touch on here is just recovery. So making this a priority, we can look at what we want to do immediately after a run so that we are getting in the right things after a recovery session. So when your run is done, you might be tired, your appetite is gone, you may be feeling a little bit nauseous. And so the last thing you probably want to do is eat sometimes. I think this is a very common sensation for a lot of runners. If you're doing a lot of threshold work, that can actually sort of, keep your appetite at bay afterwards. But it is something we do need to do anyway. So your glycogen stores are depleted, you got some sort of muscle damage. And so the fastest way to kickstart recovery is to really get in some simple carbs and some protein within that first hour. So this applies to everyone, but especially marathoners. Ideally, within the first 30 to 45 minutes, you're getting in that fuel. You're looking for that optimal ratio of 3:1 for carbohydrate to protein in terms of grams of carbs and grams of protein. We do want more carbs than protein, and the carbs really help us replenish our glycogen. The protein kickstarts a lot of muscle repair, and together they speed up the whole process of facilitating recovery. Even if you have a gel at the end of your long run that you don't want to take, taking it, sipping it in the last few kilometers of your run, that actually helps in terms of getting in those carbs and promotes faster recovery as well. And so that's just something that we can also consider, is that all of this really matters, especially at the tail end of a run or workout. Now, I guess the final sort of tips that we want to dial in here is if you can't eat solid food right away, after a session. There's many different things that we can do to individualize this. I would work with your coach on this. You may not be able to take in solid food, but liquid calories can be your friend. So that could be like chocolate milk, protein shake, a smoothie, something easy to get down like a core power drink. Then you can eat a real meal within the next hour or two when you're ready. So the foods don't need to be fancy, but we do need to have something that you like, that is palatable, and that we can get in right after as well. I think we'll leave it there for now. I think we've covered a lot of different topics. There's many directions, a lot of questions that you might have. So, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you guys. And I think in the next section, we can talk a bit more about the carb load, as well as taking in carbs on race day morning and during the race of the actual marathon itself.